He is absolutely a lightning rod of a player. I totally understand it. I get it, right? Jazz Chisholm, MLB The Show cover guy, had a lot of hype coming up as a prospect, right? Known as, this guy that has a lot of flair, but hits for power, hits for speed, a fun player. But over the last couple of years, he's ran into a lot of injuries. He said some things, off the field, questioning leadership in the Marlins clubhouse. Miguel Rojas, right? That was I forget the name of the podcast exactly, but basically calling out Miguel Rojas, saying, he's not really a good clubhouse leader. Then Miguel Rojas, he defended himself. You had a lot of people across Major League Baseball, questioning those comments because he is such a respected player. So, there is that aspect with Jazz, right? Now, with Jazz as a player, I think there tends to be the label of overrated with Jazz Chisholm. I think just because I think his name is up here. And I think when you look at the actual production, like if this is the low point, you're probably still somewhere here in the middle, right? There's some factors with Jazz what you have to think about, right? He has 2 more years of control after this, and he's 26 years old. He's about to go into some prime years, right? 27, 28-year-old seasons. So usually we tend to see pretty good production during those years. And he's having himself a pretty decent season here. He's hitting 249, 323 on base, has a slugging of 407, a WRC plus of 104, has 13 home runs. I believe, yes, over 20 stolen bases, 22 stolen bases overall. He's going to play, for the most part, a good center field. The defense is a little down this year, but I'm not really worried about that, to be completely honest. The only thing that I think about with Jazz is he healthy, and he has shown that he's healthy this year. He's missed a lot of time over the last few years. So he's going to give you, for the most part, a good center field, or at least an above average center field, and he has the versatility to play some second base. Now, when it comes to Jazz, myself, Jim of Ballcap Sports, John Bitzer of Baseball Trade Values, we were talking the other night, and, Jim, he had mentioned the Yankees. I've thought about the Yankees, too, as a possible fit, right? I even have a thumbnail on one of my videos from a few videos ago. I got the Yankee logo right behind Jazz Chisholm. It's a good fit, in my opinion. Now, when you look at the Yankees lineup, the Yankees they're kind of doing that thing again, right? Where they look great in the first half and they just start to fall apart in the second half. And, this year, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, it's the modern day Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris. These guys are having incredible years, but they're having other guys, struggling to step up. Yes, sure, Volpe having himself a pretty solid year for the most part. Verdugo has had his moments, but I feel like lately he's been struggling a little bit. He's having some trouble. Ben Rice, he had the 3-homer game against my Red Sox. I cried myself to sleep that night. So Trent Grisham, he's had a couple of moments. DJ LeMahieu's come back, hasn't really done all that much. So point blank, they're not getting a whole lot of production from other guys in this lineup. They need something else besides Judge and Soto. And even Juan Soto said that. It takes more than 2 guys to get to a World Series, right? And if you look at Gleyber Torres here, he's having a pretty down year, right? He's getting back to when we saw Gleyber Torres struggling a couple of years ago, right? Hitting 237, slugging 369. They need a little bit more there. So the fact that Jazz can play some second base, my guess is he's going to slide. He'll go into second base at some days, right? Trent Grisham, I would imagine Jazz right now will go into center field for the Yankees. You are going to get Jason Dominguez back at some point, so I'm wondering about that aspect. My guess is Alex Verdugo is probably going to lose playing time at that point. What do you do with the roster at that point? You would have Verdugo, Grisham on the bench. I guess you could do that, but I would imagine something would have to give there. I don't know, maybe you do something with Trent Grisham, maybe a DFA. Verdugo is going to be a free agent after this year. Either way, they're going to have to tinker with this roster because Jason Dominguez, he's coming back up here pretty soon. So I will say this, do I like this move? Yes, I do like this move. I think Jazz, I'm not really a big Jazz Chisholm fanboy over here, but I think he is a pretty good player when he's healthy. Again, I think he gets that overrated label because there has been a lot of hype. I think a lot of people have been expecting Jazz to be this 5-6 win player in Major League Baseball. He hasn't gotten to that level, at least yet. Maybe he could at some point, but I think when you factor in, not living up to the hype, the comments that he's made, the injuries, yeah, he gets that overrated label. But I think if you put him in a situation like this with Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, these guys are wanting to win this year, right? There's a different feel to the Yankees this year. Lately, not so much. It feels like they're starting to fall apart a little bit. But you got Soto, Judge as the leaders of the clubhouse here, along with guys like Garrett Cole, where these guys, they want excellence. They want to win. They want to go out there and go win a World Series. So Jazz, even if you look at Alex Verdugo, I think, Verdugo, that's a guy also, he's had his issues. All right, last year, him and Cora were butting heads a little bit. There were some off-the-field questions with Alex Verdugo, even going back to, the days with the Dodgers. And for the most part, Verdugo, he had that, that moment where he hit the home run at Fenway Park. That was something that grabbed headlines. But I feel like for the most part, Verdugo, he's been, it seems like everything's been pretty solid there. That seems to have been a good situation for him. I think the same thing here with Jazz, right? And I also wonder about Jazz, too. I could see a guy here. I don't know him personally. I don't know what goes on in his head. But when I see a guy that wants to go out there, have fun, he wants to go play some baseball, I think an atmosphere like this where there are some guys that can lead by example, right? And guys that have those expectations to win. At the end of the day, I think Jazz would find winning pretty fun. And, the fact that he is having a decent year on a bad Marlins team, I think that could be a good sign. Let's see what he can do with the Yankees here at Yankee Stadium, where you got, a good stadium for his left-handed bat. I think you could end up seeing more production here out of Jazz with the Yankees. I like this move overall. But just kind of wrapping this up with Jazz, right? It's a wait and see, right? The Marlins are really shooting for upside here. And I personally think his market really came back to hurt him in this situation. I think there was a limited market, and I think the Yankees took advantage of that. And whatever the other teams that could have been involved, I think the Yankees, they just had the best offer out of whatever was out there, right? And that means that the other offers couldn't have been very good value-wise, right? But for the Marlins, they shot for a lot of upside here. Agustin Ramirez has a good bat. Just needs to get that defense fully going. He has the arm there, so it's kind of one of those things. He has really moved up on the leaderboards. He's number 3 in Baseball America's top 30 for the Yankees, and he's in the top 50 when it comes to Baseball America's top 100 prospects. So Ramirez has gained a lot of steam, so I think you could see his value maybe even being a bit higher here. And Jared Cerna has a high contact bat. There's not a lot of projection there. A guy that's going to make a lot of contact, get on base, not a ton of power. A guy that's going to put the bat on the ball, really, and he's going to be fine out in the field for you. So I think that's like a high floor kind of a prospect there, going back to the Marlins. And then again, you got Abraham Ramirez. Again, there's no scouting report anywhere on him at the end of the day, so you can't really say. But the numbers that he's putting up, the one thing with Abraham Ramirez is that he is 5'9". He's on the smaller side. So, maybe in the next couple of years he gains a little bit more height. But for a baseball player, when it comes to the scouting, the guys that are, under 6 feet, they tend not to get a lot of love. So I'm not saying that as a negative towards them. I'm just going by what the scouting reports usually say. So we'll see. In the end, I think this trade, it's a wait and see. All right. But it kind of also shows the direction the Marlins are trying to go in. They're looking for high upside bats. They're trying to get as much ceiling as possible.